Hello, my friends. Welcome back. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories. I've been driving trucks for nearly 20 years, and I thought I'd seen it all. Torn up roads, endless storms, near misses with deer and drunk drivers, even the occasional weird hitchhiker. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened on that night. That night on Route 213, a road I'd traveled dozens of times became a nightmare I still can't escape. It started like any other late-night run. I was hauling a refrigerated shipment from Michigan to Idaho, a long, lonely stretch of interstate through forests, rivers, and small towns that never seemed to end. The call came in late, voice sharp and tense. Pickups at the old Clayton lot, mile marker 112, midnight sharp, priority shipment, the dispatcher said. There was a pause, a whisper I thought I imagined. Be careful, all right? I shrugged it off. I've been on the road long enough to know that dispatchers sometimes get jittery. Midnight was fine. I liked the quiet, the hum of the engine, the solitude. By the time I arrived, the lot was empty, gray under a half moon that barely peeked through clouds. The warehouse was ancient, its windows broken, steel doors rusted shut. Gravel crunched under my boots as I approached the trailer. One lone refrigerated unit waited. Cold metal, faint frost forming along the edges. No one was around. No lights except a flickering bulb above the door, swaying in the wind. Inside, a single crate sat. Heavy. Wooden. No markings, nothing to indicate what it contained. Odd, I thought, since the paperwork mentioned a full shipment of similar crates. I leaned closer and noticed scratch marks along the edges, fresh and shallow. I shook my head. Rats, maybe. But then, faintly, I heard something else. A scratching, soft, deliberate, coming from inside the crate. I froze. My hands gripped the crate handle. Nothing made sense. The sound didn't match anything I knew. It was alive. Something inside was moving. Something was trying to get out. Just your imagination, I muttered, though my voice sounded hollow in the empty lot. I hooked the trailer to my truck, climbed in, and started down the highway. The engine hummed, warmth spilling from the vents. The road was empty. Too empty. No other vehicles, no distant lights, just the faint rustle of wind. I glanced at the GPS. It had gone haywire, showing a twisting route that didn't match the road. I ignored it. Fatigue can make anyone paranoid. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time became meaningless. And then I heard it, a whisper, soft and chilling, coming from everywhere and nowhere. Drive. Don't stop. I slammed my hand on the horn. Silence. My eyes darted to the mirrors. Nothing. Just the crate in the trailer, cold metal and wood. The fog rolled in suddenly, thick and viscous, curling around the tires like smoke. Shadows appeared at the edges of the headlights. At first, I thought they were trees. Then, I saw them move. Figures, humanoid but wrong, limbed in ways that no human should be limbed. Faces featureless, pale, moving in rhythm with the truck, keeping pace. My pulse hammered. The crate rattled violently in the back. My stomach lurched. Something inside was alive, clawing, pounding at the walls. I slammed my foot on the accelerator. Drive, or we take you. The whisper grew louder, echoing inside the cab and inside my skull. The road itself seemed to bend, twist, impossible curves forming in the fog. Mile markers disappeared. Signs were blank, replaced with symbols that made my skin crawl. Snow began falling, thick and wet, though the forecast hadn't predicted a storm. Figures darted across the road. I swerved to avoid them, tires screaming on slick asphalt. The crate slammed again, bouncing from side to side. My hands shook uncontrollably. I was trapped, a prisoner of some impossible force I couldn't name. Hours or minutes later, a faint light appeared ahead. A gas station? Impossible. I had been on this stretch for eternity. The shadows seemed to vanish as I approached, slipping away like smoke. Relief washed over me, but it was brief. I pulled into the lot, heart racing, body trembling. The crate was gone. Just an empty trailer. No scratches, no traces, nothing. I stepped out, hoping for some explanation. There was none. The clerk looked at me as though I'd lost my mind. "No deliveries came through here tonight," he said. "Everything looks normal." I tried to convince myself it was exhaustion, hallucination, a combination of fatigue and road monotony. But deep down, I knew the truth. Whatever was in that crate hadn't left me. It was still out there, watching, waiting. Since that night, I've never driven alone after midnight. Every foggy mile, every empty stretch of highway brings a shiver. The whisper follows me. I hear it in my dreams faintly, urging me to drive. And I know, one day if I ever stop, it will catch me. I keep moving, always moving. Because the last thing that whisper said before vanishing forever was the truth I can't escape. Drive, or we will come for you. Even now when I'm alone, headlights cutting through the fog, I can feel it. Waiting, always behind, always near. And I know that no matter how far I drive, some roads never end. I had never been one for superstitions, but after the night I spent at the Blackwood Hotel, I started believing in them. It began as a simple road trip. I was exhausted after driving through the winding mountain roads for hours. And when I saw the Blackwood Hotel looming out of the mist, I thought I'd found my salvation. The hotel was an old Victorian building, perched at the edge of a cliff, with a faint light flickering from its grand lobby windows. Its sign read, "Blackwood Hotel, vacancies." As soon as I stepped out of the car, a gust of icy wind hit me, carrying the faint smell of damp earth and decayed wood. The fog wrapped around the building like a living thing. I hesitated at the entrance, but exhaustion won. Pushing open the double doors, I entered a lobby frozen in time. Dust floated in the dim light of the chandeliers, the wooden floorboards groaning under my weight. Behind the reception desk sat an old man. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his eyes were milky, as if he'd seen too much, or too little. He didn't greet me. He simply slid a brass key across the counter. "Room 13, he said, his voice raspy like dry leaves. I hesitated. The number made me uneasy. I shrugged it off. The lobby was otherwise silent, the walls echoing the ticking of a massive grandfather clock in the corner. The air smelled of old carpet, mold, and something metallic I couldn't place. The elevator was small, brass-lined, and clearly ancient. The doors groaned as they closed behind me. As it ascended, I noticed my reflection in the mirrored walls. At first, I thought I looked tired, but then I realized my reflection blinked slightly after I did. I froze, but the elevator continued its slow climb. Room 13. I took a deep breath before turning the key. The door opened to reveal a dimly lit room. The air was colder than the hallway, and the shadows in the corners seemed unnaturally deep. The bed was neatly made, though the sheets had an odd stiffness to them. A large, full-length mirror stood in the corner, slightly tilted. At first glance it was ordinary, reflecting the room exactly as it was, until I saw the figure. It was me, but not. My reflection smiled, a slow, wrong grin that didn't match my expression. Its eyes were black, empty, and fixed on me. I stumbled back. The mirror rippled, as if water flowed beneath the glass and then cracked. A whisper slithered from the shadows. "You shouldn't be here." Panic surged through me. I ran to the door, yanking at the handle, locked. I tried the window, sealed shut. My phone had no signal. I was trapped. The shadows began to move, first along the edges of the room, then creeping toward me. I backed into a corner, heart hammering, as they stretched like living smoke. The mirror's surface shimmered, revealing not one reflection, but dozens. Faces of previous guests, their eyes hollow, mouths open in silent screams, stared back at me. Then the figure stepped out. Not a reflection. A pale, wet-looking humanoid, with limbs bent impossibly and a mouth stretched wide. It moved silently toward me. Its lips formed words in my own voice. "You belong here now." I ran, trying doors that weren't there before. The hallway twisted and elongated, impossible architecture bending reality. Every time I thought I found the exit, I ended up back at room 13. Hours passed, or was it days? Time seemed meaningless. The whispers grew louder, filling my mind, telling me things no human should know. Secrets about the hotel, about guests who had checked in and never left. I realized then, the Blackwood Hotel was alive. It fed on fear, and I was its next meal. I tried to hide, under the bed, in the wardrobe, behind curtains. The figure found me every time. Its face reflected my own terror, and it whispered constantly, "You cannot leave." The old man appeared again, this time standing at the end of a hallway that hadn't existed before. His eyes were empty, but he smiled. "You're part of the hotel now," he said softly. "Room 13 claims all who enter." I screamed. The sound echoed, joined by countless others, guests trapped in mirrors, walls, floors. I tried to fight, but the shadows wrapped around me, dragging me toward the mirror. I saw my reflection smiling, grinning at me with teeth far too sharp, eyes hollow. And then, the world went black. When I woke, I was in room 13. Everything seemed normal, except the key sat on the nightstand, engraved, Blackwood, room 13. The fog pressed against the windows. The whispers began again. New guests had arrived. I watched them through the mirrors. They laughed, unaware of the danger. I whispered to them in my own voice, "Don't leave. You belong here." Because the Blackwood Hotel never forgets. It never lets anyone go. Now, I wait, and room 13 waits with me. The mirrors shimmer, the shadows stretch, and the next guest approaches. I thought I knew what I was getting into when I booked the cabin for my vacation. Remote, off the grid, a place to escape the chaos of city life. I wanted peace, quiet, and solitude. The website promised it all. A rustic wooden cabin nestled in the woods, overlooking a clear, still lake. The reviews were sparse but glowing. "Perfect getaway," they said. "Quiet, relaxing." I should have ignored them. I arrived late in the afternoon. The drive had been longer than I anticipated, winding through narrow mountain roads that seemed to twist endlessly, flanked by dense, towering pine forests. The sun was just setting when I finally reached the cabin. From the outside, it was picturesque. Smoke curled from the chimney, the wooden porch looked inviting, and the lake shimmered in the fading light. But as I stepped out of the car, I felt something I couldn't explain, a heaviness in the air, a sense that I was being watched. I brushed it off as exhaustion. The first night was unnerving, but I tried to convince myself it was just the unfamiliar surroundings. The forest seemed to hum softly, a faint whisper of wind. Or maybe it was something else. Around midnight, I woke to the sound of someone whispering my name. I sat up, heart pounding, flashlight in hand, and searched the cabin from top to bottom. Nothing. Just the silence of the woods pressing in. The next morning, I decided to explore the surrounding trails. According to the map I had printed, a short path led to a scenic overlook. The hike started pleasantly enough, sunlight filtering through the branches, birds chirping, the occasional rustle of small animals. But the deeper I went, the darker the forest became. Shadows seemed to move where no light should reach. I felt a prickle at the back of my neck, a persistent sense that I was not alone. Every time I turned around, I thought I saw movement, figures slipping between the trees. But whenever I looked directly, there was nothing. After what felt like hours, I reached a small clearing. In the center stood an old, decaying cabin. Its roof was sagging, paint long gone, and the windows were dark, lifeless. Something about it made my stomach turn. Curiosity pushed me closer. On the door were strange symbols carved into the wood, jagged lines, circles, and marks that almost looked like tallying. I stepped back, heart hammering. For a moment I considered leaving, but then I noticed a faint light flickering inside, like a candle. Against my better judgment, I peeked through the broken window. The interior was empty, but the air smelled of decay and smoke. Objects were scattered across the floor, old photographs, broken toys, and journals with brittle pages. I picked up one of the journals, flipping it open. The handwriting was frantic, smeared in places. The entries spoke of whispers calling the writer's name, shadows that moved independently, and a presence that watched constantly. The last entry was smudged with something dark. It waits in the woods. It waits in the water. It knows your name. Don't look. I dropped the journal, stomach churning. When I looked up, the clearing was empty. The forest around me felt suffocating, pressing in closer. Panic surged. I ran blindly along the path I had come, but the forest had shifted. The trail no longer existed. Every tree looked identical, and I had no sense of direction. My flashlight flickered as I stumbled, branches clawing at my face and arms. Eventually, I collapsed near the base of a massive pine, gasping for breath, tears streaming down my face. By nightfall, I somehow found my way back to my cabin. Relief was fleeting. The air inside smelled faintly of damp earth, and the wooden floors had scratches that hadn't been there before, long, deep marks like claws. I barricaded the doors and windows as best I could and tried to sleep. But around 3 a.m., the whispers returned. Not just my name this time, other voices too, children crying, women screaming, laughter that didn't belong anywhere. The shadows outside the windows shifted unnaturally, stretching and bending as if alive. The following morning, I resolved to leave. I packed quickly and ran to my car, only to find it missing. The gravel driveway was empty, replaced by an endless stretch of forest. I called out, hoping someone would answer, but only the echoes of my own voice returned. And then I saw them, figures emerging from the trees, tall, thin, faceless, moving silently toward me. My legs froze. Panic overwhelmed me as I realized I couldn't escape. I ran into the woods, desperate, branches tearing at my clothes and skin. The forest seemed alive, bending and shifting to trap me. I stumbled upon a small black lake, the surface perfectly still, reflecting the twisted trees above. And in the water, I saw my reflection, but not as it should have been. My eyes were hollow, black voids staring back at me, mouth open in a silent scream. The reflection moved independently, mocking me. I tripped backward, falling into the lake. Cold water engulfed me, pulling me under. When I emerged, I was back in the cabin, as if nothing had happened. The fire was burning. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows. The car, my bag, everything was gone. For a moment, I thought it had been a dream, but the whispering started again. From the corner of the room, my name. I tried leaving again, searching the forest for any sign of a path. Every exit led me back to the cabin. The trees seemed to move when I wasn't looking, closing in, rearranging themselves. Night fell quickly now, unnaturally fast, and the voices grew louder, forming a chorus of torment. Every reflective surface in the cabin, the mirrors, the lake, even the windows, showed something wrong. My face, twisted and hollow, screaming silently, warning me of what I was becoming. I've tried to warn anyone who might stumble upon this place. If you see a cabin on Shadow Lake, stay away. Don't look at the water, don't answer the whispers, and never, ever step inside. Once it knows your name, it follows you forever. I hear it now every night, whispering, calling, waiting. And I know that one day it will reach out to you too. I had been looking forward to this road trip for months. Just me, my car, and the open road. A week away from the city, away from deadlines, noise, people, away from everything. I had mapped out the route, picked scenic highways through the mountains, and packed my favorite snacks, playlists, and my journal. I was ready. The first few hours were everything I imagined. The air smelled like pine and asphalt. The road stretched ahead like a ribbon of freedom, and the sun reflected off the windshield, painting the world in warm gold. I rolled down the windows, letting the wind rush past my face, humming along to the music. I didn't notice the first sign. It was small, wooden, almost like a marker someone had carved. "Do not follow the road beyond." I laughed. A warning for the faint-hearted, probably left by some old hiker. I ignored it. The road soon narrowed. Asphalt gave way to gravel. The trees grew closer together, their shadows lengthening unnaturally over the road. Something about the forest felt wrong, stagnant, heavy. The air was dense, like I could feel it pressing against my chest. That's when I noticed movement. At first, it was subtle, a flicker at the edge of my vision. I thought it was a deer, or maybe a trick of the sunlight. But then I saw it clearly. A figure, pale, standing perfectly still on the roadside. Tall, thin, and dressed in dark clothing that blended with the shadows. Its head tilted slightly, watching me as I drove past. I slammed on the brakes, my heart hammering. I glanced in the rearview mirror, nothing. Just the road disappearing into the trees. I tried to shake it off. "Just nerves," I muttered to myself. But the unease lingered. I continued, though the road felt like it was stretching, bending in ways that didn't make sense. Every turn seemed to bring me back to the same place. I passed a mile marker, Hollow Creek, 7 miles, and 15 minutes later, another sign. Hollow Creek, 20 miles. Something was wrong. I tried calling for help. My phone showed no signal. Fine, I thought. It happens in remote areas. But when I checked the battery, it was dead. Completely. Not a percent, not a warning, just zero. The sky began to darken. Not the gradual evening descent, but sudden, almost violent, like the sun had been snatched from the sky. Fog rolled in thick and fast, blanketing the road, muting sound. My headlights barely pierced it. And then I saw the first car. Abandoned, old, rusted, parked in the middle of the road. No lights, no driver, just sitting there, waiting. I swerved, tires squealing, barely missing it. When I looked in the rearview mirror, it was gone. The fog thickened. The forest seemed to close in. And then I heard it. A scraping sound. Soft at first, like branches brushing against metal. Then louder, against the roof of my car, the windows. I froze. I told myself it was just animals, maybe raccoons, maybe deer. But instinct screamed otherwise. My hands shook on the wheel. My breathing grew rapid. Then I saw them. Figures, shadows gliding between the trees. Too tall, too thin. Limbs bent in impossible ways. No faces, just blank pale masks staring at me. Some moved slowly, deliberately. Others seemed to leap impossibly from tree to tree. All of them watching. Panic surged. I hit the gas, tires kicking gravel, but the road twisted unnaturally, looping back on itself. I passed the same abandoned car again. Another figure appeared. Closer, always closer. The radio burst to life, static at first, then a whisper. "You shouldn't be here. You belong to the road." I yanked the dial. Dead. The whispering continued in my head, overlapping, echoing. My pulse raced. The trees seemed to lean in, branches clawing at my car. The figures were closing in. I spun the wheel and tried to turn back, but the road had changed. The highway I'd been following had disappeared. There were no signs, no markers, only the endless stretch of fog and the shadowy figures surrounding me. Then I saw a building. A gas station, or at least it looked like one. Neon sign flickering weakly. Last stop. I pulled in, desperate. The pumps were rusted, empty, windows boarded. The smell of decay filled the air, like old blood mixed with rotting leaves. Inside, the store was empty, shelves covered in dust, cans of food long expired, and in the corner, a figure hunched over, small, shadowed, its head tilting unnaturally to one side. It raised a hand, beckoning. "You were warned. Now, you stay." I didn't wait. I bolted, back to the car, but the keys were gone. My heart sank. The whispers grew louder, chanting in a language I didn't understand but somehow knew. "Stay. Stay forever." I ran into the forest. Branches tore at my clothes and skin, but I didn't stop. Footsteps followed, countless silent gliding. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but fear propelled me forward. Hours passed, maybe minutes. Time had no meaning. The fog never lifted. The whispering never stopped. I tripped and fell into a creek, mud and water soaking me. My flashlight rolled into the water, batteries dead. Darkness swallowed me. When I woke, I was lying on the side of a paved road. Sunrise painted the sky in soft gold. My car was gone. My backpack, my phone, nothing. Only the empty highway stretching endlessly ahead, normal and quiet. I ran to the nearest town, to civilization, people, lights, noise. They called the police, but no one believed me. No records of the road I'd been on. Maps didn't show it. My journey had vanished, leaving no trace. Weeks later, I drove past the outskirts of the city. I saw a sign in the distance, half buried in fog. Do not follow the road beyond. My stomach sank. The forest beyond that sign looked dark, dense, alive. I never drive alone now. I avoid highways at night, back roads, shortcuts. But sometimes when I close my eyes, I hear the whispering. Scraping, faint footsteps, shadowy figures at the edge of vision. And I know one day, if I'm careless, that road will call me back. Because some roads never forget. Some highways never let you go. And I know the forest is patient, waiting. The desert is honest during the day. At night, it lies. I learned that after midnight, driving west on Highway 62, when the stars were so bright they looked sharp enough to cut, and the road stretched ahead like a single unbroken thought. I'd been on the road for hours, long enough for my mind to drift and circle back on itself, long enough for guilt to start whispering again. That was why I was driving, not to get somewhere, to get away. The clock on the dashboard read 1:03 a.m. The odometer ticked steadily upward. The AM radio played faint static under a distant voice, some late-night talk show arguing about nothing important, normal, comforting. I remember thinking, if I just keep driving, everything will settle. That's when the radio went silent, not static, not a fade, just gone. I tapped the dash, twisted the knob, nothing. Then a voice came through, clear, calm, and very close. "Driver," it said, "please confirm you are alone." I froze. The road hummed beneath the tires. Wind brushed the car's frame. Everything else was still. What?" I said. The voice didn't repeat itself. Instead, the radio crackled and a tone sounded. 3 short beeps, then 1 long one. "Signal locked," the voice continued. "Beginning night log." I laughed nervously. "This some kind of broadcast?" "No," it said. "This is for you." The desert changed subtly after that, not in ways you'd notice right away. The road stayed straight. The stars stayed fixed. But the darkness beyond my headlights felt thicker, like a wall instead of open space. My mirrors showed nothing but black, as if the desert behind me had been erased. I sped up. The engine responded, but the speedometer stayed fixed at 65 miles per hour. I slowed. Still 65. "That's not funny," I muttered. The radio clicked softly. "Speed accepted," the voice said. "Proceed to mile marker 30. I stared ahead. There hadn't been mile markers for at least 20 minutes. Then I saw one. Mile 30, fresh paint, bright reflective numbers. As I passed it, the radio chimed. "Good," the voice said. "Memory synchronization stable." My chest tightened. "Who are you?" A pause. Then, "You know who I am." The odometer clicked. Instead of numbers, letters appeared. JAMES, my name. I nearly swerved off the road. The odometer continued to roll. MARTIN, my last name. I slammed the brakes. The car slowed, but did not stop. The desert ahead warped, the road stretching unnaturally long, the mile marker shrinking away from me like it was being pulled backward. Emergency braking denied, the radio said calmly. You're not finished. I tried my phone. No signal, no data, no time. Just a black screen that reflected my own pale face back at me. The radio hissed softly, then spoke again. Do you remember mile 12? My stomach dropped. I did. I just hadn't thought about it in years. That was an accident, I said quickly. It wasn't my fault. The desert wind rose suddenly, rattling the car windows. Sand skittered across the road like running feet. Mile 12, the voice repeated. Record shows no emergency call placed. I panicked, I whispered. Record shows vehicle departed scene. The road ahead dipped slightly. A mile marker appeared. Mile 12. The desert around it was darker than the rest. The sand clumped and uneven, like it had been disturbed recently. I shook my head violently. I didn't mean to. You left, the voice said. Proceed. Something appeared in the road. A shape, human-sized, standing exactly where the marker was. I screamed and yanked the wheel. The car resisted. I passed through the shape. For half a second, my headlights illuminated a man lying on the road, eyes wide, mouth open in a soundless scream, one leg bent the wrong way. Then he was gone. The mile marker behind me shattered into dust. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the wheel. The radio crackled again. Night log updated, it said. Proceed to mile marker 5. No, I said hoarsely. I'm done. I'm pulling over. You cannot stop, the voice replied gently. Stopping is the same as arriving. The desert road narrowed, the shoulders falling away into darkness. The stars above blurred, smearing into long white lines like scratches in the sky. I started to cry. Not loud sobs, just silent tears slipping down my face as memory after memory surfaced. Things I had buried so deep I'd convinced myself they weren't real. A phone buzzing while I drove, a flash of movement, a body in the road. I hadn't even checked his pulse. The radio tone sounded again, 3 short, 1 long. Mile marker 5, the voice said. The marker stood crooked, barely holding itself upright. Something leaned against it. A woman. Her clothes were torn. Her face was bruised. Blood matted her hair. She looked directly at me. I screamed and shut my eyes. When I opened them, she was inside the car, sitting in the passenger seat. Her presence sucked the warmth from the air. Why didn't you stop? She asked softly. I was scared, I sobbed. I didn't know what to do. She tilted her head. You knew. Her hand rested on the dashboard. It left a smear of sand and blood. The radio spoke over her. Proceed to mile marker 0. The road ahead collapsed into a long, straight descent. The desert vanished. Darkness swallowed everything beyond my headlights. The odometer spun wildly, letters replacing numbers, names flashing too fast to read. Hundreds of them, thousands. The woman faded from the seat, her outline dissolving into dust. You're not the first, the radio said, just the one who came back. Back from where? I whispered. Mile 0, it replied. The final marker stood at the bottom of the descent. Mile 0. Nothing else, no road beyond it, just open desert. The car slowed on its own, stopped, the engine cut out. The silence was absolute. My door unlocked with a soft click. Exit the vehicle, the voice instructed. I stepped out. The air was cold and still. The stars hung low, wrong somehow, as if they were watching. The ground in front of me was covered in objects. Phones, wallets, keys, personal things, hundreds of them. At the center stood a mirror mounted on a bent road sign. I approached it slowly. The reflection wasn't quite right. My eyes were too dark. My face looked older, hollower. Confession required, the voice said. I'm sorry, I whispered. I should have stopped. I should have helped. The mirror cracked. Insufficient, the voice replied. The desert shifted. Cars appeared around me, engines idling, headlights on. Inside each one sat a driver, staring forward, hands locked on the wheel, eyes empty. Say it, the voice demanded. I killed them, I said. The words tasted like blood. The mirror shattered. The ground fell away. I woke up driving. The desert was gone. City lights stretched ahead. Traffic moved normally around me. The radio played music. The clock read 1:03 a.m. The odometer showed numbers again. I laughed hysterically, relief flooding my chest. Then the radio whispered. Night log paused. A mile marker passed on the right, mile 29. My phone buzzed. A notification. Unknown audio file, playing my own voice filled the car. If you're hearing this, it said, shaking, don't take the highway at night. Don't ignore the radio, and whatever you do, the audio cut out. The radio tone sounded, 3 short, 1 long. Mile marker 30 approaching, the voice said calmly. The desert waits for everyone. Some of us just drive back into it. I had been alone in the house before, plenty of times. An afternoon here, a quiet evening there. I thought I understood what loneliness felt like inside these walls. I didn't understand anything. The night my parents left, it was raining lightly. Not a storm, just enough to blur the streetlights and make the windows reflect more than they showed. I stood at the front door, watching their car pull away, the tires hissing against the wet road. My mother waved. I waved back. Then the car turned the corner, and the house exhaled. I felt it more than I heard it, a subtle shift in pressure, like stepping underwater. I locked the door, slid the deadbolt, then stood there longer than necessary with my hand still on the metal. You're fine, I told myself. The words sounded wrong in the empty hallway. The house was quiet, but not peacefully so. It wasn't silent either. There were small sounds, pipes clicking, the refrigerator humming, the soft tick of the clock above the stairs. Together they formed a kind of rhythm, uneven and irregular, like a heartbeat that couldn't settle. I went room to room, turning on lights. The glow made me feel safer, even though it also created long shadows that stretched in ways I didn't like. When every room was lit, I stood in the middle of the living room and listened. Nothing unusual. I made dinner, ate too fast, left the TV on for company. Every laugh track felt invasive, like strangers mocking me from behind the walls. Around 11, I heard the first thing that didn't belong. It was subtle, a soft sound from upstairs, not a creak, not a footstep, a shift, like someone adjusting their weight on a bed. I muted the TV. The sound didn't repeat. I waited a full minute before laughing nervously and blaming the house. Old wood, temperature change, normal explanations. Still, I didn't go upstairs right away. When I finally did, I paused at the bottom of the stairs. The hallway light was on, spilling yellow light over the landing. My bedroom door was open, exactly as I'd left it. Nothing was out of place. I brushed my teeth, changed clothes, and got into bed. The rain had stopped, leaving the world outside unnaturally quiet. No cars, no wind, just the house and me. Sleep didn't come easily. I kept listening. Somewhere after midnight, I heard my name. It was faint, almost gentle. I sat up so fast my neck hurt. "Hello?" I whispered. Silence. I told myself it had been part of a dream. Hypnagogic hallucination. I'd read about those. Your brain filling in gaps as you drift between states. I lay back down, then I heard it again. Clearer this time. "Hey." It came from the hallway. I stared at my door. "Who's there?" I asked. The words felt stupid the moment they left my mouth. No answer. I lay frozen, staring at the sliver of light beneath the door. It flickered, as if someone had passed in front of it. My heart slammed against my ribs. I reached for my phone and texted my parents. "Me. Did you forget something?" The message sent. No reply. Another sound followed, soft footsteps on the carpet, slow, barely audible. They stopped right outside my door. I could hear breathing, not heavy, not rushed, patient. The handle turned, just enough to test it. Locked. The breathing stopped. I held my breath, afraid even the sound of air leaving my lungs would give me away. Footsteps retreated. I stayed awake the rest of the night, staring at the door, waiting for it to open. It didn't. The next day, everything felt wrong in a quieter way. The house smelled different, damp, stale, like it hadn't been opened in years, even though windows were cracked and doors unlocked. I walked through the rooms, checking corners, closets, behind curtains. Nothing. I told myself fear was contagious. One bad night didn't mean anything. That afternoon, I found something odd in the kitchen. A cup in the sink. I hadn't used it. It was clean, still faintly warm. I stared at it longer than I should have, then rinsed it and put it away. My hands shook. That evening, I locked myself in my room before sunset. I didn't turn the hallway light on this time. I didn't want to see shadows moving where they shouldn't. I lay in bed scrolling endlessly, eyes burning, brain refusing to shut down. Sometime after 2 a.m., the house made a new sound, a door opening, slow, careful, from downstairs. Then another sound followed, someone walking, not wandering, not searching, walking with purpose. Each step moved closer to the stairs. I sat up, clutching my phone. The steps climbed. 1, 2, 3. They paused halfway. I could almost picture it, whatever it was, standing there, listening, learning the house the way I had my entire life. Then it continued. The steps stopped at the top. The hallway floor creaked. The sound moved toward my room. The door handle turned, locked. A pause, then a knock. Soft, almost polite. "Why are you hiding?" a voice asked. It was familiar, too familiar. It sounded like me. "I live here," it continued. "Don't you remember?" I screamed. The knocking stopped. Footsteps retreated, faster this time. I didn't chase, I didn't move. I sat there until dawn, shaking. On the third night, the power went out. No storm, no warning, just darkness. The house felt enormous in the dark, like the walls had pulled back to make room for something else. My phone's flashlight cut weakly through the black, catching corners that didn't look right, angles slightly off, shadows deeper than they should be. I heard whispers, not words at first, just murmurs layered over each other, coming from inside the walls. I pressed my hands over my ears. They didn't stop. "They left you," one voice said. "They always do," said another. I backed into my room and slammed the door. The whispers followed, from the closet, from under the bed, from the ceiling. My phone buzzed. A message appeared, from my own number. "You talk to yourself when you're scared." I dropped the phone. The bed creaked as weight pressed into it beside me. Something lay down. I couldn't see it. I could feel it. The mattress dipped. The sheets tightened. A breath brushed my ear. "You gave me a name," it whispered. "I learned it." I screamed until my throat burned. They found me in the morning, curled in the corner of my room, nails bleeding where I dug them into the floorboards. They said I'd had a breakdown. They said the house was empty. They said there were no signs of anyone else. They moved me out 2 weeks later. I never went back. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone in a new place, I hear it. Soft, patient, calling my name. And I know I taught it how to sound human. If this story scared you, make sure you're subscribed.